Show me where your date book is and your checkbook, and I'll tell you who you're going to be a few months down the road. Where you're investing your time in growth and where you're investing your money determines exactly where you will be. I'm not looking to get popular. I'm looking to have an impact.
Yeah.
That, my friend, requires people who do two things.
Okay. Cool.
Pay time and pay investment.
Please welcome my coach. He will introduce himself to you again. This is Mr. Njeru Nthigah. Get ready to hear so much wisdom.
Well, all right. So one of the things that Aaron had basically asked me to share with you all was this concept of looking at your mid-year. And I went back. I've not been, it took me some time. It's probably been in the last few years that I've actually developed the discipline of actually scheduling my year, the discipline of actually designing a year that allows me to achieve what it is that I want. And just like everybody else, I remember starting, I would do the 12-year goals that seemed just never to work. I seemed to put my health goals, and then every January I was readjusting them, or it was financial goals, and every month I was either adjusting them higher or lower, and I never really understood the process of growth. And only in the last few years that I have taken the intention of clearly designing different blocks of my life in a way that allows me to actually have a true reflection. So one of the things that is fundamentally important is when you are at midpoint of the year. Now, we've never had a year like this. This is truly a most remarkable year in the fact that we were joking around and saying probably the worst investment you ever did this year was buying a date book, because everything you planned up until COVID suddenly was tossed out. And that has been the experience for all of us. We've had to adjust, we've had to work from home, we've had to do all these things that have come with this. But notwithstanding that, if you have a plan and you clearly have a strategy to achieving that, you will switch your journey or your circumstances, but rarely will you throw your plan out. Most people, when faced with tough circumstances, they throw the plan out instead of adjusting the journey towards your goal. So one of the things that I always encourage people is you start with the end in mind. You start with your 12 months. If you're starting in January and you're looking back, looking forward into December, what is it that you want to have achieved? What is it that is tangible, that is measurable, that will make a difference in your life do you want to have accomplished? I'm not one who, I hear there's all that hairy, scary goal stuff that is there, and it's fine. I mean, create whatever goals. But I remember back very many years back talking to a mentor, and I remember I had just started my business, and I was probably in about a year or two, and I jumped on a call with him, and I was frustrated. I was frustrated because I had set $1 million goal, and here I was. I don't even think I had hit 100,000, and I got on, and I was angry. I was deflated. I really didn't even know. I made myself wrong. I was angry with the process. I didn't know whether I was doing this right thing. And really what I want to say at this point is, first and foremost, he stopped me. And he said something that really changed how I looked at things. And he asked me, when's the last time you made $1 million? And I said, never. He asked me, when's the last time you made $500,000? I said, never. He asked me, when's the last time you made 250? And I said, never. He asked me, when's the last time you made 150? And I said, never. And it dawned on me that the one thing that you did all in this particular session before we started, you started with gratitude. And because I was so fixated in trying to achieve this huge, big goal on the other side, I forgot to appreciate the process. I forgot to appreciate who I had become and who I was becoming, even having made the 100. And so that's the one thing that I learned is set goals. I think there's this misconception that goals have to be this big, huge. And, if you are in a place where you can produce a huge goal, fantastic, go for it. But I can tell you that achievement is a process by process by process. If you made $50,000 last year, for me, what a stretch goal is, this is what I like calling them, I call them a stretch goal, is what if you made 75? 25, you can see it, you can actually reach it. Your mental mindset has the capacity to grow there. You have not trained your mind to come from 50,000 to $1 million. You do not have the dexterity. You do not understand what it takes. And so suddenly you begin to self-sabotage yourself because you're beginning to create goals that are far beyond, or goals that actually lead to you failing. And it's the same thing, whether it is in weight. If you're losing weight, you realize that you only lose weight a kilo or a pound at a time. You don't come from 300 pounds and you want to be 70 pounds tomorrow without actually understanding and appreciating the journey and the process. So one of the things you want to do is you start with the end in mind. You look at the certain areas. Now, you'll notice I do this. This is a very common thing, and I'll share this. I work a lot with this little posters. I don't know what they call them, but I write my thoughts. I write my aha moments. I write my daily agenda on these little notes. And I write them here because one of the things is, at the end of the day, I rip it. And whatever I put on that next day becomes what I focus on. And so here's what it is. I wrote a couple of things. You want to have a plan for your health, your wealth, your relationships, your faith, your personal growth, and the impact that you want, how you want to serve in a year. Now, if you put back a clear, tangible, if it is my health, I want to be optimally at this weight. I want to be able to be having changed my diet or eating, better, tangible things that you can actually measure. When you look back and say, hey, I am at 50 pounds and I want to be at 40 pounds, then I now know that I need to lose about 0.9 pounds or 0.8 pounds every month. That is a clearly measurable goal. I am at 100,000 and I want to make 124,000. I now know that, for me to hit my goal, I therefore need to make sure the bare minimum, I am making $2,000 every single month. That is measurable. That is not a Sunday maybe pie. Now, if you are at midpoint and you do not have a clear life plan or goal plan, then you have nothing to measure against. Now, if you don't have one, I think, listen, it's better, when's the best time to have planted a tree? Was yesterday. What's the best time to plant a tree next? Is now. So now is the time that you create one. And for me, it came from a year plan, and it started actually developing. And now, a few years down, I'm working on a life plan. I now know what do I want to do in a few years. I am not caught in 5-year, 10-year plans because things change. If you had a 10-year plan or a 5-year plan before COVID, it's probably changed because the world now post-COVID is totally different. How we are going to operate, how we're going to do business is changed. So the number one thing, before you even start looking back and reflecting at your next quarter, your next 6 months, question is, do you have a plan? I would rather that you had a plan that you actually create today than waiting for the January group, the people who start plans in January, and by the second week of January, they are all out. Now, I've been there. I've set those goals. I've gone and paid for the gym, and by second week of February, I only go to the sauna. And so really learning how to start planning your life becomes fundamentally important. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're a coach, you're a trainer, and all, as in particularly in this group, particularly, I love the word thrivers. These are people who are thriving, people who are moving towards something. And so if you are in that world, if you actually sit back and realize that you don't have a plan, then chances are you're not going to end up where you want to go. So you build a 12-month plan. You take those specific segments that you look at, whether it is, and for me, I started small, whether it was my weight, whether it was my wealth, whether it was my relationship. And I actually, for reality, I'll give you an example. I schedule time with my wife. I'm beyond that spontaneity, because when I leave it to spontaneity, then chances are is that it doesn't become a priority. It doesn't make me less involved or less interested, but I know very well that there is a specific time in my calendar that I don't do anything else, and it's time for me and my family. It's time for me to spend time with my family. I have a young son now. He's 6 months now. I need to make sure that there's a point in time where I cut off everything so that I intentionally spend time, because who I am and how I develop and how you actually grow requires being fed from all those areas. And now more than ever, particularly if you're working from home, it's very easy not to know how to turn off, because guess what? My computer is here. My workstation is here. I can go up at midnight. I can go up at 1 o'clock. I can go up this time. And before I know it, I have worked my way around. So back here, create a life plan. Create a plan that actually reflects where you want to go. Create a plan that reflects where you want to go. That requires you to have, in essence, what you have created is a pathway towards the accomplishment of your desire. Then you create a plan. What do I need? When we talk about building a business, how will I serve? When you say that I want to develop a business that earns me $100,000, they are important questions to ask. What am I doing? How am I serving? How am I going to create the revenue? Do I have a plan to generate this revenue? Those become the important questions. When you answer those questions, then they determine where you learn. So when I look back at what I'm doing, we were talking before this with Aaron, we are in the process of launching my podcast. I knew very well that it was going to happen at this particular time. So my investment in my growth right now is I have a podcast coach. I have somebody who has developed and generated not only revenue, but has met the marks of what I'm interested in achieving. And now he's mentoring me through my own process. So that became an important investment at this season of my time. That is an important factor, because here's what I know, particularly for people who are creatives, you tend to run everywhere. I invest in this and I invest in that and I invest in the other thing. And you keep on this learning pedestal that you keep going and going and going and never stopping to actually reflect, is what I'm learning in alignment with exactly where I'm going. If it is not in alignment, I'm going to tell you, you do not have a plan. You do not have a plan for your business. You do not have a plan for your personal growth. Those are two important things. One of the things that we talk about, and I keep sharing this also with Aaron and other communities, I say, show me two places. Show me where your date book is and your checkbook, and I'll tell you who you're going to be a few months down the road. Where you're investing your time in growth and where you're investing your money determines exactly where you will be. So that being said, you start with a game plan. Divide it into the 6 sectors: health, wealth, relationship, faith, growth, and impact. Be very clear about what it is that you want to achieve. Write it down. Write it down. All things are created twice. They're created here and they're created verbally. That's how you create it. Most of us have these ideas in our head, and the only person they seem to judge, the only person they seem to entertain is you, but they do not make any difference. But if you take your idea and put it and speak it out into the world, the chair you're sitting on was once an idea. It was somebody's idea. And now think about it, the power of an idea that is actually being implemented. Think of the simple fact that you sit on a chair. That was one day somebody's idea that did not stay in his head. He actually spoke it out, and he actually went farther. He actually implemented it. He had a plan and implemented a chair. Look at it now. What's the value of a chair? How many designs are there in the world? How many people are paid just by making a chair? How many material is created? If you look at just how that one small idea works around, from the lawyers who have done patents, from the varieties, the warehouses that build chairs, the transporters that move chairs, the salespeople that sell chairs, the designers that are paid by that one idea. So I say this to say this: an idea in your head has got no value until it is spoken and actually applied. If you're at that point in your business and you are looking back at making the best of the remaining 6 months, I suggest you write it down. Don't get caught up. Again, don't get caught up into this whole hairy, scary goal stuff, because until you know how to run, focus on learning how to crawl. Until you know how to run, then don't be focused about trying to dash. Take everything in steps, because every level of your growth introduces you to the next level, allows you to learn what you need to learn, because every level builds upon the next. So take a plan, sit down and decide what it is that I want to create. And until I took time out and started breaking down everything into tangible, manageable blocks, only then did I start developing and realizing that I was having momentum in my life as compared to sitting and wanting all this pie in the sky ideas. But when I decided, hey, you know what? I want to put a podcast. When do I want to put a podcast? What is the podcast about? Who do I want to serve? What is the objective of the podcast? Who do I need to learn from? What do I need to invest in? How long do I need to put in time for it? When I figured that out, it came from here and became tangible. Here's also another powerful thing about speaking and writing it. When you speak it and when you write it and when you share it with that clarity, because you've done the work to articulate it, the world begins to align with you. The universe aligns with you. You get people and resources that show up because suddenly you raised your hand and said, hey, I want to build a course. I want to build a membership. I want to become a trainer. I want to build a business serving others. When you raise your hand, opportunity matches you. When you don't, opportunity goes to the next person. So make sure that if you have a plan, you reflect on it. Now, a couple of things. If you're those who are great planners, you want to reflect on your plan. I spent the last week literally doing that. And what I did is I went back and I looked at what was my goal plan by the end of the year and where am I now? I do that, one, to actually tell me exactly where I am in relation to my desired goal. You have to learn to ask the right questions when you do that, because here's what I know. The quality of questions you ask yourself will determine two things, whether you get up and keep moving or you sit down and stop. The old me would ask those questions, and the questions was, so what was wrong? Why hasn't things happened? And technically, when I got to that place, what I did is I began to whip myself. And I do a phenomenal job at beating myself down to the point that I would get stuck. I would get stuck in what was wrong and what was missing. And I never stood to actually stop and actually appreciate the journey I've made this far. So the quality of questions you ask through your process of reflection determines how well you play your second half. So learning to ask those questions. So I ask, what have I learned? What could I have done differently? What steps could I take so that I can achieve that? What adjustments do I need to make so that I actually accomplish on that? And I don't have, in my game plan, it is very few goals in all these things. There are very few, because here's what I know is if I'm not careful and I got all these plans, I stop experiencing life by showing up and being in my life, and I start doing things. I'm now a checkboxer, and I'm just trying to check and check and check and check. And it would be a tragedy to get to the end of the year, having made the money and lost your family, having done everything else that you did and missed out on the most important moments. So I keep it small and simple. I keep it very clear. What do I need to do? And I work on that. If it is my business, I have 90-day goals. If every quarter I come back and I reflect, and all those quarters actually are a reflection of that. So if I wanted 30,000, then I know that, hey, guess what? 7,500 every quarter, 7,500 every quarter. And I focus on that only. What do I need? What did I learn? What did we do well? What could we have improved? And until you start looking at those blocks in those times and appreciating every single moment and asking the right questions, chances are you get stuck. You want to make sure that when you reflect on the findings of your past 6 months, then you are looking for the right thing. And what do I mean by this? Most people come to that point of reflection, and you either are looking at it from a point of perspective, which means that how does this reflect in where I'm going? How does this reflect in what I want? How does this reflect in where I am in my personal growth? Or most people come to that point and look at it from comparison. So-and-so has gone here, so-and-so has managed to do this, so-and-so has doubled their business and done that. What you don't know is how long they've gotten to get there. What you don't know was how well they prepared to get there. And most important, you are on your own journey. So that becomes particularly important. One of the things that I think is fundamentally important when it comes to reflecting and creating your next quarter, stay flexible, stay attached to the process. Don't get attached to the outcome, because if you had been attached to any outcome in 2020, I'm sure you'll be surprised. But if you stay in the process, if you adjust, if you keep moving, if you keep adjusting, if you keep welcoming the new opportunities, you keep welcoming the new, I don't call them challenges, the new learning steps that come ahead of you, you will actually discover how powerful you are, how resourced you are, and how resourceful you are if you stay in the process. I could not underscore the value of having a coach like Aaron. I could not underscore the value of having somebody who's been where you've been. I've seen him assemble, amazing people who've come and shared with you. I've always said this: it's easier for me to get to where I want to go without recreating the wheel. I find somebody who can help me get there. Now, I choose to find people who push me beyond. I don't grow, and I don't think people grow when you're looking for white gloves. And I'm not saying that it's going to be a battle. But here's what I know: that if I don't find a coach who actually challenges me mentally, who challenges me and does not holds me to my BS, who holds me, and I mean BS both as you get it and also to my belief systems as well, who actually challenges how I think, who will not take my excuses, that's the only way that I know that I can grow. Because if it was any easier, you would have done it by now. I would have done it. So I'm always looking for somebody who I know who has compassion, ruthlessness with me, in the fact that when I share my goal, when I share my yearly goal, they will hold me to my word, that I will show up. They will check with me. They'll make sure that I'm doing what I'm doing. And here's what it is: when I engage myself with a coach, I surrender myself to their learning. And what I mean by surrender myself is I come with thick skin. I know that they're pushing me is because they love me and they want me to grow. And I say this because I have pushed Aaron. I have pushed Aaron. And I reflect with him exactly what is reflected in me. I look for a coach that will stretch me. I look for somebody who will push me to the next step. Now, I say this: when you come to a coach, bring something to work with. People who have coaches, people who have a plan, people who have a process get paid. They get paid consistently. They get paid because they do the things that are necessary to actually grow. They get the progress because they invest in themselves. Come with something. So as you look back at your year now, midpoint, I think we are now at the most amazing place, and it's taken me a journey to get here, because if I'm going to be honest enough, there was a certain point of me that there was a certain worry of like, okay, what's going to happen? And then I soon realized we are creators, we are creatives, we are blessed. We have the ability to actually take an idea and manifest it. We were talking before we jumped on here, and we were talking about this Thrivers community. This was an idea. This was an idea. This was a light bulb moment that came to Aaron and his team. And here's what's the difference. The reason why he has thousands of you in this group is because they took the action. They came together, they actually applied something. And if you ask them, would they have anticipated today? Probably not. But guess what? If he can make Monday after Monday, if he can stay consistent every day and add value and keep learning and add value and keep learning, guess what? 52 Mondays from now, he'll be so much more better than he was when he started. That's how you develop progress. That's how you consistently stay in your game. Now, get a coach, get a plan. This is an exciting time. I think there's been a huge number of people who have come out into the online world, people who are looking for personal development, people who are looking for coaches, people who are looking for your product. But as long as it's in your head, makes no difference. So come out now. I think this is the best time. Come out and fail forward. Come out and try it. If it is worth it, if it is worth your life, this is the time to do it. Aaron.
All right, sir. Njeru, thanks. I just looked at the time. I'm like, wow, I could just stay there and just keep listening as always. As always, how we start my calls, my coaching calls with you. You have my permission to stretch the heck out of me even while we do this interview. If I don't answer the questions well, tell me that I haven't. Tell me to refrain it. And let people see what I go through, so that they understand where it's coming. Let me start from something you said, because I say this a lot to my clients and many don't get it. And it's that thing about actually surrendering yourself to your coach. If you could just speak into that, because I hear a lot of my people who come on my coaching calls and they're coming willing to argue for where they're coming from. Yes. Willing to argue for their limitations. They're so empowered to argue for their BS, their belief systems, and I'm just like, okay, what you argue for, you get, but just maybe they will hear it differently from you, and just that place of being willing to actually surrender to your coach.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting, because I think it's even the context of how you look at surrender. Because we've been taught about surrender being that, I'm helpless. That doesn't mean so. When I surrender to my coach, I'm actually giving up myself and saying, show me the way. Now, and show me the way means that I don't sit back and he points me the direction. But what I'm saying is stretch me. I want to learn from you. Now, here's what is very interesting. The higher you go up in the coaching ranks, or the higher you go up and the higher the investment from your coach, or the more accomplished they have zero time to tolerate you when you bring your issues. Because listen, here's it. If you could figure it out, and this is what it is, a lot of us are not willing, because when we talk about not surrendering, is you are not willing to learn.
Yeah.
And coming into a relationship and coming to learn something requires you first and foremost to stop, be willing to unlearn, so that you can learn something new. Mm-hmm. Have you tried to go and get a driver's license and argue with a guy who trains you how to drive a car? Right. There's no future, right? Doesn't matter whether you knew how to drive a bicycle. Doesn't matter whether you knew how to drive a car legally. But if you do want to pass the exam the way it has been structured, then you're going to have to put everything else aside and surrender to that experience of learning, so that you can go where you want. And here's also another thing is this. Every time I see somebody not willing to surrender to the process, I can tell you he's somebody who's not going anywhere. He has no desire. He's somebody who's hoping that your association is somehow is going to trip and fall over success. Yeah. Doesn't work like that. So for me, surrendering is my way of saying I'm ready to learn. Surrendering is my way of saying that, hey, I'm willing to actually put my mouth where my money is. Since I'm investing and giving you my money and my time, I'm willing to show up. That's my expression of surrender.
Wow. All right, let me see, which should I do first? Because a lot of my clients have heard me say a lot of interesting things, and they typically would think, oh wow, I'm brilliant, I'm intelligent. So let me I am. Let me just quickly say maybe one or two of the things that you said to me that has stuck with me so much, and just so that you can then speak into them, just to expound and give more clarity, or do a teaching on them. One of the things that you said to me that completely shook my life is you can never change the direction of a parked car.
There you go.
That stuff stayed with me, has stayed with me forever. So everybody, if you've heard me say it, this is where I got it from. So let me give you the opportunity just to elaborate on that quote and that statement. Yeah.
Listen, it belongs. That's the same that we were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
You cannot, when you come to a relationship as somebody who's being coached, you either come agile and ready to move, or you come as a block. If you come as a block, I cannot mold you. I cannot help you. That's the first thing. It's surrendering. Number two, you until you take it out of here, until it's out of your head, and you actually bring it into the marketplace, then only then can you improve. Listen, here's what it is. You cannot improve what you don't move.
Wow. Whoa. Another one.
Right? So the fact that you came here and you had an idea, was it figured out? Was it 100% where it wants to be? No. But guess what? Since you moved it, guess what you've done? Every week you have an opportunity to improve on it, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You can never get to a destination until you actually get the car off the parking.
Yep.
And until you're willing to start with what you know, start with what you have, and be willing to go out there. And that willingness is what I'm talking about. That willingness to learn, that willingness to be coached, that willingness to actually apply. And there's more to that, because here's what it is. There's this whole concept that people come out and think, I need to know everything. And there's a difference between determining what do I need to know in this season.
Yeah.
That's when we were talking about having your game plan for the year, because then I know in this particular season, if you're not focused on learning how to build a community, if you're not focused on learning how to do a better summit, if you're not focused on learning how to do this thing, let me tell you, if you move from here and you go and start learning about how to do another thing, guess what's going to happen? You're going to lose this.
Yeah.
But if you stay in this season and find people who feed you and get you better and get you good at this particular season, you will have developed a community. You have developed dexterity. You have developed new knowledge. And guess what? Every week they're asking you better questions. You're going to become a better coach. Now, next quarter, you have something to build upon. That's it. It's that simple.
Wow. Another quote of yours that stays with me. You said this thing, only people who pay attention.
That is true.
The transaction is in the process, is in the payment. Just go on to that a bit.
You know, it took me a little while, and I think you know my story. I moved continents to come and search for a dream that I had no clue.
That's where we're gonna go. So just go in there then. Go on.
And you know, we'll get there. But here's what it is. Here's what I know. Free has never moved anybody's life.
Ooh. Please say it again. Free has never moved anybody's life.
Anybody's life.
Okay.
And there's two things that I relate to that. One, and I'm going to share, you know, one of the things, before I do answer this, I have this, which is something that I write here. And so when I say that you've got to pay for my services, let me tell you what I do. Daily I read. Daily I write. Daily I create. Daily I add value to others. Daily I ask great questions. Daily I reflect. And daily I rest. Every day, consistently. Now, if I've done that for the last few years to be able to add value, do you really think that it is fair enough for me to just come and give it to you? I have invested in coaches, invested in programs, I've invested in seminars, daily I spend time growing. So let me tell you, paying me is not really more about money, but first and foremost is honoring my investment in myself.
Yeah.
Paying me is actually telling me that you have skin in the game, that you're ready to actually surrender, that you are ready to actually say yes to your dream. Because here's what it is. Free is around the world. If free really transformed people, Google would be the greatest transformation machine there is in the world. Right? Pop it in, get it free, go and transform yourself. But there's a difference between being in the crowd and standing out from the crowd. That requires both payment of time and resources. So for me, I had to And I think you go through it at different seasons, because when you're starting in your business, we tend to think that, who am I? What do I need to give? If I give myself free, then people, you diminish your value, hoping to have the greatest impact. And it doesn't work that way. But the day you come back and you say, listen, I'm learning, and listen, this is the first rodeo, but listen, when I get this thing figured out, it's going to be 100 pounds. But while we are doing this, guess what? It's going to be 30 pounds. But what I'm really asking you to do is I'm beginning to sift those who are willing to invest in themselves and those who are not. I'm on a mission. And I really, be honest with you, is I don't have time to Mickey Mouse around. I don't have that time. I am on a mission. I have a purpose to do it. And what it is I'm looking for people who will come and take this journey with me. I'm not looking to get popular. I'm looking to create transformation. I'm not looking to get popular. I'm looking to have an impact.
Yeah.
That, my friend, requires people who do two things.
Okay. Cool.
Pay time and pay investment.
Time and investment. Just one more, which you just shared today again. You say when you raise your hand, opportunity matches you. That's something you've rang so many times. And it's the reason why when you come up with a program, I don't even wait to see when Njeru says, hey guys, I'm speaking at 8 p.m. I'm in your inbox. I say, I'm ready to go wherever it is, and most times, and we're gonna, my story is a bit similar. Part of my story is a bit similar to yours. I remember, and I shared this with my clients. I remember getting up and getting on a flight to come to your summit in New York without even knowing. Without even knowing how I was gonna pay for I'm not sure I told you that bit, but I got to your summit in New York without even knowing how I was gonna pay for my accommodation.
Yes.
And that's where we're going to go in now. So your story, born in Kenya, lived in South Africa. Take us on that journey. What made you leave Africa to go to the United States? I don't want people to hear it from me. I want them to hear it from you.
So two quick things. When we talk about that opportunity will meet you. I always say this, what car do you drive now?
A Captiva.
Captiva. Before that, what did you drive?
A Captiva, actually.
So think about this. How many Captivas?
Honda.
Honda before.
Yeah.
So if you saw a Honda before, how many Captivas were you seeing then?
No, not plenty until you drove the first Captiva. Yeah.
Yes, and now when you saw the first Captiva, now they're everywhere, right?
Yep.
So here's what it is until you focus on opportunity, not only do you realize that opportunity has been around, opportunity is actually waiting for you to raise your hand. Mm-hmm. It's not a miracle. It is actually, opportunity is always there present for those who are willing to do the work. So when you raise your hand, you actually realize this story that I have been looking for, this thing that I've been looking for is actually present, because suddenly you started focusing not on what you don't have, but you started focusing on what you have. And whatever you focus on expands.
Yep.
So as you grow, as you look at this, when you raise your hand and you're willing to look at it, here's what happens. People show up at the level you are. Opportunity shows up to keep you growing. And if you keep going, guess what happens? It builds you to the next level, Opportunities always introduces you to the next level of opportunity.
Next level, yeah.
Not doing anything about opportunity keeps you exactly where you are yesterday.
Wow.
All right. So back to the question. Yeah. Well, my journey. Born in Kenya. Born in average family. In every case, we used to joke around that we were upper poor. We made it through, right?
Yep.
I happened to have lost my biological mother at the age of 18. And I was brought up by three women that were fundamentally the pillars of my life. Lost my mother at 18, lost the other one at 19, my aunt and my grandmother at 22. And all these women, really, literally, this was my family structure. At 17, I wanted to come to the US and I wanted to be a pilot. That was my plan. My mother didn't have much, but she knew how to, know somebody. And one day I woke up and all that was gone. And so I came from a young man who had this great ideas of what I wanted to do. and I got to a place where I had to learn how to survive. And, went on, built a business, my second business. I ended up owning a freight forwarding company, and I was absolutely successful. Age of 22, 23, 24, I was literally the freight forwarder for practically almost every foreign diplomatic embassy in Nairobi. And, I had more money than my entire generation. But I share all this to tell you that when I got to this journey here, it was coming from a place where I had seen success, I had experienced success, and I had lost success as well. In the whole journey, I had been there because what it was I was a wealthy little poor boy, had a poor mindset, poor thinking, but had a lot of money. And so I did all the things that I thought that money should buy, the trappings. And I went to the golf course and what I drove and what I did and all those other things. But in all that journey, what happened is I happened to have met a mentor. And he was my first real mentor. He was a gentleman from the Netherlands. And he was the CEO of Kenya Airways at the time. And for 2 years, he said, you've got to come and work for the airline. And I said, you know what? I had a business. I was doing very well. And one morning, I just decided I wanted to see more than Nairobi. I sold my business and I took up the offer. In 3 days or 4 days later, I was in South Africa and I was country manager for Zambia, Malawi, Zimbabwe, and worked out in South Africa. At 26, 27, I was running a $44 million budget. Never worked in an airline, had never done any of that. But I knew how to communicate with people. I knew how to connect with people. And I went there and we, built an airline that had 3 flights a week to 2 flights a day in less than 6 months. But in all that journey back and forth, I traveled the world and I saw things. And I had picked up a book by a guy called John Maxwell. And when you're flying around, you want to sound like you really know what the heck you're doing. So you buy a book, right? The book, which I had never read. My last book was in high school. And so one morning I'm in Sandton, South Africa at the Hilton. It was on a Friday. And it was an evening and I went upstairs and I decided, well, I've been carrying this book for a while. And I decided, well, I was going to read it. And I picked up the book and I could not put it down the whole night. And when I got down in the morning, 2 things happened for me. Is I realized that there was more to leadership than I knew. And number 2, I said I wanted to work with this guy. I didn't say I wanted to work for him. I said I wanted to work with him. 3 months later, I resigned a job that I had a driver. The trappings of life. I was flying first class around the world. I mean, I had everything that you could. And I made a journey to America. I literally I left Kenya, went to the UK, and I had $1,000. All the rest of the money I left home because I had a daughter. And I went on this journey, which said that I want to go and bet on myself. I wanted to go on this journey and say, if anything was going to change, if I was going to experience what I had read, if I was going to live in a world where I can truly mold myself into what I wanted, then I was willing to bet on myself. And I went on this journey. I got to London and she actually lived in Finchley at the time. And I walked out of, it was Finchley, and I walked down and there was a Thomas Cook place. And I went and I bought a ticket to Atlanta, Georgia. Now, you may ask me why I bought a ticket to Atlanta, Georgia, is because behind the book said that the guy had an office in a place called Duluth in Georgia. Now, I had never been there before. I had no idea where I was going. I did not know anybody. But all I knew was this guy had an office somewhere in Duluth. Paid something, I crossed over. I remember crossing over with $749. And I had 2 suitcases. I had that book. And I had a Bible that I had not opened for a very long time because I knew this time I needed Jesus on this street. So, and that was a journey. It went on I booked myself into a Best Western across the road, and my journey began. A year and a half later, I was cutting grass in Atlanta. to put food on the table. I never forget this. I always say this. I remember living, this may resonate with you. I remember living South Africa, spent almost $3,000 to come and watch Al Jarreau at Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years later, I am at the same park in Atlanta, waiting for him to get done so that I can be paid $7 an hour to collect the bottles.
Wow.
Now, you talk about thinking that you must be stupid. I mean, I had every reason. I would call home and everybody would say, come back home. I was one phone call away from running back to the normal, from running back to my comfort zone, from going back to people
I like what you said, running back to being normal. Wow.
And I said, you know what, I'm going to stay there. And it took me, this is interesting. I would go to the John Maxwell offices in Duluth, and my first personal development books came from there. There was no John Maxwell team. There was nothing. Yeah. I would go there and offer my services, and I'd pack books to go to conferences that I couldn't afford. I would go to the bookstores and take a leadership book, and I would read it because I couldn't afford it for $20. I would read it, and then I'd take the book, instead of putting it back in personal development, I would go and put it in cookery, in the section of psychology, right? So that they don't find it, because tomorrow I want to come back and continue reading, right? And that was my journey, but I kept saying yes. I kept raising my hand. I kept going to the next conference. I kept reading. I kept finding books and just studying and studying and studying. My first book, this is interesting, and it is right up here. My 21 Irrefutable Laws is right here. From that book to almost 700 and something books. That became my university. I buy books, I receive books, and I read, and I just started investing in myself over and over. And 9 years into that day that I made my choice, I woke up one morning and I opened my computer and I received an email that said, John Maxwell is starting the John Maxwell team.
So just let's stay there. What happened to you in all that 9 years? Had you met John Maxwell at all in all that 9 years?
Nope.
So this sounds like one of the books you're walking me through in Think and Grow Rich, where Edison, where Barnes goes to Edison and is working for Edison, and no chance at all. So you mean for 9 years, you stayed in there with no chance of meeting John Maxwell and not running back home. What kept you going?
I had been back behind. I knew what I left. I was being driven by what was possible.
Wow.
I wanted to discover what was possible. And here was a question I remember asking myself. And I remember thinking, and I said to God, and I said, I've been through so much and been spared through so many things. I always tell people God spares two kinds of people, children and the foolish. And I belong to the group of the foolish, because I had done things and made mistakes in my life, and you spared me, and you protected me, and even through the seasons of life you protected me. And so I made a choice, and I said I wanted to discover what his idea was of my life. That kept me going. And so every reason, and again, remember, I had walked in Nairobi. I had been without food sometimes. There is no mode of transport I have not taken apart from riding a camel. So coming to America and I didn't have bus fare was no big deal. Coming to America and having to take a bus was no big deal. Coming to America and I had to fly was no big deal. I have taken every mode of transport. So life had prepared me. Those things that you talk about, the seasons that you think that were rough and bad, had actually prepared me for the season that I needed to be able to usher me here. So there's nothing that you could have thrown at me that would have scared me or challenged me. But here's what I knew. I wasn't going back to normal. Wow. I knew that if I stayed there, that if I just chipped at it, if every day I woke up and I took an axe and I just went at it every day, and I realized that today was an opportunity for me to read more, an opportunity for me to grow, an opportunity to expose myself. And I just became solely dedicated to that. I invested in my growth, and I knew there was going to be one time. There was going to be one time. And like I said, here he opens up the John Maxwell company, and I only had $1,000, and that was my rent. And I had a choice. Do I pay By the way, there was no payment plan at the time. It was $5,000 and I had 1,000. So I called. I found a way. I found a number and I called. And I said, I'm sorry to say this, but I lied. I said, there was a problem with my payment, and somebody came in, and I said to that person, I said, listen, I have $1,000. I don't care what you do, but I'm going to be in the John Maxwell team. You're going to take my money now, and you will take it. And before we get back to Orlando, I'll have paid that. That was Melissa West. She said, okay, I'm going to find somebody. I knew my landlord won't throw me out because I was late for 1 month, but this opportunity doesn't come again. Again, when you raise your hand, opportunity shows up. By the time we were there going to Orlando, I had paid for the amount of money. One way or the other, I had figured it out. What was really unique again is every single time, the day we were going to go to Orlando, I had exact. Had I lost $1, I would not have left Orlando.
Wow.
We got to Orlando. I could not even afford to have 2 meals a day. I could only afford to have one. And that was either the choice. I either had breakfast or had dinner. So when people went for lunch, we had it at West Palm. I would cross over and go. There were a couple of hotels. I would go like 3 hotels. My ego wouldn't let me be around for them to see me that I was hungry. I would walk 3 hotels this way so that I can waste time over lunch hour and come back. And I'd pray all over through the afternoon session. They don't hear my stomach grumbling and drinking water, right? But here's what happens. Stay with it. I've introduced John on stage, 3 times?
Yep.
Had an opportunity to be John on a minute with Maxwell. I've served on the Presidential Advisory Council for 5 years. I've served as a success coach. I've served as a peer teaching partner. I've had some of their people who are around him mentor me because of an idea that I followed.
So let's expand on this idea thing, because one of the things I'm big with my clients is about the place of thinking, and that's one of those things that I've learned with working with you. I know when I started working with you, I used to tell me, when last did you inspect your thinking? And for me, that was like a slap. Who the heck are you to tell me to inspect my thinking? and then I go back to my clients and I hear myself verbiage in saying the same thing. Are you hearing what you're thinking? Can you hear? So let's take, because I was teaching last week, and I was talking about how you take an idea from seed form to manifestation, where until it becomes a physical form. And that's that thing. You read a book, you saw something, you stayed in it, seeing no results, seeing no change, but still holding on to that image. If you could just give clarity to everyone who is listening and just walk them through that journey. I mean, you're one person I've seen leave this in and out regularly, and probably the best person I know who can share and teach on those things.
Well, here's what it is. What I know is some of us don't have to cross continents to make this happen. Some people don't have to go through this drastic journey, but the continent you have to cross is here. This journey, the distance between your 2 years, is the toughest continent you've got to cross. It's the toughest journey you've got to cross. So when we talk about inspecting our thinking, for me, it's evolved over time. One, when you say that you actually have an idea, when you have that aha moment and actually say, I'm going to go and serve, I'm going to go and take this idea out. The first thing that I always ask, when you're inspecting your thinking in that process, why do you want to do it? Most people go out and take out an idea because they want to make money. That's the wrong question to ask. Because if you really take out an idea and stay with an idea, what actually happens is you become a different person. That idea grows you to become the person who's worthy of more than you really ever wanted in money.
Wow.
That's what an idea does. An idea grows you. So at every stage of this whole process, it's beginning to ask those why questions. Why am I doing it? Secondly, it's inspecting your thinking when it comes to how am I learning? What am I learning? As I said, is it in alignment with what I do. Here's what I've discovered over the years, and even with working with entrepreneurs like yourself and every day, we need far much less than we think we do to actually start producing success in our life. We live in a world where we think you have to become this expert in everything and you have to know all these things. I have observed and sat around people who only know one or two things. But what they've done very well is they've found other people outside who have different strengths, and they've made a better cake. But they get good at what it is. So discovering what am I good at? What is it that I can bring to this idea that adds value? Then I think through, who could I bring to amplify this? Who could I bring who can join me, who can make this better? Do they have to join me as business partners? Absolutely not. It may be your fellow coaches or partners or a project, whatever that looks like. So inspecting your thinking when you start, inspecting your thinking as you grow, but also inspecting your thinking as you serve. Why do I want to do this? I'm in a stage and time in my life, and you're part of this. I had this dream that said I wanted to build 100 millionaires. It's called the 100 Strong. And here's what I discovered. When I actually said that, when I took that idea from my mind and actually shared it with you guys, here's what happened. It stopped being my idea. It became our idea.
Yep.
Immediately,
and I'm building 100 Strong also. It's just resonating. Yeah.
But that's what that idea now turned back and reflected the mirror back to me, because then I started beginning to look at who do I need to become to be the steward of this 100 Strong. But not only that, who do I need to become for the people who are saying yes to this? So it turned around and forced me to look this way, inward, to grow, to stretch, to invest, and to lead. That's what an idea does. But if an idea is singularly based on your ego, all it does is you're looking for money. And money is the lowest denominator of satisfaction you could ever find. It's the lowest one. Because I know a lot of people with a lot of money who are not happy.
Yeah.
But if you really want to live in a world where you contribute, inspect your thinking. Every day, even in the process, when you look at the barriers and challenges you face, 99% of the solution is actually inward. It's a matter of the questions you ask and the process you take to actually overcome it. So that's simple. So I'm constantly inspecting. I'm constantly inspecting my thinking in my process, inspecting my thinking in my relationships, inspecting my thinking in what I listen to, inspecting my thinking in what I say, inspecting my thinking in my association. Because then in that point in time, when I stop to actually think, is this group of people moving me forward? Or is this group of people keeping me in my comfort zone? When I look back in my days, and I think I shared this with you, I remember back then when I made 100,000, I actually looked for people who made 10,000 and 1,000. You know why? Because they were my pussies. They kept me nice. They upped my ego. But when I look back, when I learned my lesson and I look back at people who've been successful, when they make 1,000, they look for the guy who made 10. They make 10,000, they look for the guy who made 100. They go that they are always stretching upwards. When you are based on your ego level and you're not inspecting your thinking, you're always looking downward.
Yep.
So thinking is the easiest, hardest thing to do. And learning how to actually think is a process in itself. Because most of us just have this mental machine going, and since we actually sat down until we took Tylenol, then we thought we were thinking. You're not. You're just having mental gymnastics, right? Which is very different from actually you sitting down and actually learning the skill of thinking. And that requires you to learn how to ask the right questions of yourself, the right questions of others, learning the ability to reflect, learning the ability to tweezer out what it is that I learned and what do I need to give away, and learning the ability to actually take it from just a thought by applying it, implementing it.
Implementation, yeah. Wow. Let's go into, so one of the books you've been mentoring me in pretty much in the last 3 years now, Think and Grow Rich. And every time, I mean, I'm probably my third or fourth year now with you on just the same book. So firstly, I want you to touch on this thing people keep reading books, and this book is a classic book in itself, where only God knows, I can't remember the numbers of people who have read the book and yet haven't become rich. And yeah, and this discipline of actually staying with something consistently, we're in it. I mean, we have a mastermind tonight. We're still looking at the same book, in it, week in, day in. I just want you to possibly, just share talk around that thing about actually studying and walking through, because we live in this world where everybody, there's a new book. I have people who are constantly, have you read this book? 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 And yeah, we're still reading one book in almost 3-4 years. If you just could just serve this community with them understanding how to stay in a book until the learning from that book begins to manifest itself.
There's a difference between reading and studying. It's that simple. People read books as though it's a comic, and it took me actually to be mentored through the book originally to actually understand. I was one of the people who bought Think and Grow Rich and put it on my shelf because every other rich person bought it. I mean, you must have it. But then I was one of the 70 million who had not done anything with it. And then I realized there's two simple things. When you actually choose to read something, first and foremost, you're choosing to invest your time, which is a non-negotiable because you're not going to get it back.
Yeah.
You're taking your best resource and choosing to invest it, the time. Not only typically a book doesn't cost that much, but if you look at that, we've taken that book and spent a year learning it. We've spent time learning it. That's time investment. So first and foremost, studying is a reflection of you respecting the time you put into it. Number two, when you study, you're looking for you're always in the hunt of what you can implement. When you're reading, you're looking for, little those ahas, excitements here and there. But when you are seriously studying, you're beginning to look for what was the thinking, what was the idea, what's the lesson, what's the tool, what can I implement, what can I take from this part here that I can actually take into my life and apply it today. That is study. When you actually, and here's how you know you're studying. The good book says what? Study and show yourself what?
Approved.
He didn't say read it. He didn't say browse it. He said study. Stay with it.
Yeah.
Because when you stay with it, what happens? It begins to change your life. When you stay with something, when you study something, you actually are making a choice to take the best out of it. So when we sit back and we study, and here's very interesting, in the 4 years, I think it was the fourth time you're doing it with me.
Yep.
The context of the same book has changed 4 times, isn't it?
Still changing.
Same paragraph.
Yep.
Same paragraph. What has changed was the context through which we actually read the same book. We are reading the same book now from the context of implementation.
Yeah.
Which is very different. And what blows my mind is I read the same chapter, same paragraph that we've been reading, but because I am now in the pursuit of looking for something different.
Yeah.
What I see, opportunity. When you're in the pursuit for something different, what you see is different. Same thing. Staying with it. There's value. And I, I'm also one who I'm still a bookaholic. I mean, I buy books. I'm not going to lie. I still buy books.
Yeah.
Here's what I did is I built books, and I'll tell you this. I built books because I either learn from my mentors or I ask what people are learning. And it's always my next thing. So I may not read it now.
Yep.
But I promise you the next time when I stretch back this way and I get that book, it serves me in that moment and that time.
Yeah.
So I may not read it. So my question is when I'm in that season of reading this book, I'm not reading anything.
Yeah.
Now I got 4 books yesterday, but I'm not touching them because in this season, I am staying with what we are studying. For the next 90 days, all I am reading is Think and Grow Rich, so that I am being responsible by inspecting what comes in here.
Wow. Let me just read someone's question here before I go to my next question. Someone says, what is the thinking process to asking the right questions to a why?
Interesting question. I think here's what it is. Why questions are big body questions, right? And why questions give you a big picture. And I found that for me, why questions give me clarity. Why questions give me direction. No, why questions give me purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But really the powerful questions are the how questions.
Mm.
Now, when I'm looking for purpose, I'm trying to look at this big picture. Why would I want to do this? Why would I need to invest this? Why is it important for me to build a business, a digital business? Why do I want to become a coach? I'm beginning to answer those questions that are bigger picture. They are me answering a bigger frame where I'm looking at a long-term investment, for example. Why do I need to create a community like this, right?
Mm.
Why questions are always big point questions in my view. But I think really the questions that move the needle are the how questions. Well, so now I know that.
Yeah.
I now know that why. You see, most people know a lot of why. Very few people are willing to do the how.
Yeah.
And the how is what really makes a difference. So I think you want to, why do I want to be healthy? Well, I want to be healthy because not only the fact that I want to be present and have longevity in my family, but I also want to be healthy because I know that I have a purpose and a goal in this life. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be healthy. I just figured out the why, right? But the how is really for me what takes. So now that I know the why, how do I fulfill on living out a longevity in my life? Then that requires me eating differently, me getting a coach in my health world, me joining a gym, or me making sure that I'm present to these things that's what moves people forward. I think a lot of people get stuck in the why, but why for me is a big question. They're big questions. And always, I think ultimately, I think the greater the why, the greater the clarity of your why, the more glaring it is that you need more than just yourself.
Yeah.
When why just looks like, why do I want to do this? Because I want to make, 5,000 quid. It's minimal. Anybody can do that. But when your why looks like, I actually want to transform 100,000 businesses in the UK, that becomes a whole different game ball. That becomes a whole different perspective. So even the quality of your why determines your view and perspective of life. So, I think it's a great question. I think it's good to ask those questions, but very quickly, I think learn to ask the how questions.
Right. Let's go to COVID quickly, and just because I know you're such a reflective thinker, and I've not had the opportunity to ask you this on any of our sessions yet. What have you learned in this season? What have you learned? And I get the opportunity to kind of share with everybody. What have you learned in this season? What is this season teaching you? What have you been able to, using your word, tweezer out of this COVID season?
That's a great question. One, I think that I've learned, well, first, that life is fragile. That we have to be grateful for every day we get. See, here in New York, what people didn't see was many people who lost their lives. And at one point in time, there was not even a funeral home that was available. People were even in trucks. That literally where we were at the Central Park, they actually had to cut the Central Park to hold bodies. So first and foremost, I'm present to the fact that we are here today by the grace of God. And I'm truly grateful for that. Life is fragile. Take every moment you've got to live the very best you can. Love passionately, live powerfully, seek intentionally. Life is not guaranteed. Number two, from a business perspective, diversify.
Mm.
I was one of those people that and what a great lesson. My world was in a world where I depended on, building businesses or my coaching structures and all that sort of stuff. And people got scared. People held back, or you had to tone down so that you're not tone deaf.
Yeah.
But if I look back, I think it is important to diversify. And does it necessarily mean that I diversify in a business that stretches me out? But I think, putting my effort and my entrepreneurial skill in more than just one bucket for me would have been done. And it's also possibly diversifying, even if it's in this world where I have different price points of my journey. That I have a $49 product as well as I have a $10,000 product. But if all you had was $10,000 products, guess what? 10,000 people did. They were not buying.
Yep.
And not because they didn't want it, but there was fear, and fear was huge and was everywhere. So for me, that was, diversifying in product offer, diversifying my business to create that level of security. What else did I learn? I learned that it's important to be healthy.
Mm.
There's a joke that goes on here in my house, and I say, the scared shall leave. When you become intentional, and this is what it is, we don't go out, we don't do the things, we honor when we are asked to do certain things. And it's not because we don't think it's important, but I wear a mask not because I value my family, but also it's important for me to be a participant in saving another person's family, that we are in the community together. What you do affects me, and what I do affects you. So learning to value in this process and be intentional in what I do and be a participant in finding a solution is the best contribution I can make in this season and time. So, there are, and I don't know whether I answer your question, but those are things that I've reflected. And here's what it is. On the flip side, I've had the opportunity to spend time with my son and my daughter that would never have been possible, and I'm grateful. I am grateful that I have gotten more than money could buy. I got time. I laughed more. I loved more. I shared those little moments. We shared the little few things that we did. But me watching my 6-month-old son and being here and actually watching him crawl last week is a blessing, man. I saw him take his first crawl. And that for me, money can buy that, man. So again, it's perspective. It's perspective. You can look at COVID, and COVID looks like the worst thing that has ever happened. Or you can look at COVID, and I think really COVID is going to be a game changer. It's not going to be. It is a game changer.
Yep.
What you did pre-COVID and post-COVID is going to be different. How we do our business, how we interact with people. I'm seeing now, more companies are willing to have people work from home. All those things create opportunity. All those things they're creating a certain challenge, and challenges are going to be the bread and butter for entrepreneurs, the people in your group. If you find solutions to some of those things, you're a software person, you bridge a gap. You are a trainer, you bridge a gap. You are a service provider, you bridge a gap. So COVID has brought with it opportunity.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Because of time, we're just at 9 o'clock. I'm just going to allow you to give us some final words, just final thoughts that people can just hold on to. If they didn't hear everything, the video is still going to be here for people to watch. What would be that? You speak so much wisdom. What would be the one wisdom that people can just hold on to right now that you just think people should hear?
Well, thank you. First and foremost, thank you for having me. Thank you for the privilege and the opportunity to serve you. I'm honored. Thank you for allowing me to live my joy. I live for this. I live for the opportunity to have this level of conversations and hopefully impact one person. And I hope that we do that together. Here's what I know. Well, here's what I've got to say. Knowing has never made a difference.
Whoa.
Knowing has never made a difference. Transformation only happens where implementation has occurred. A lot of people know a lot of things. And if you're in the pursuit of knowing, all you have is just knowledge. But knowledge has never created transformation. Applied knowledge, implementing what you learn on this journey as you come here week after week, it makes no sense to commit to be here week after week if you're not implementing, because all you're doing is consuming.
Wow.
I've said this before. Majority of people are busy with information, but they are anemic to deeds.
Wow.
And the reason you have that 1%ers or 3%ers is because they actually took an idea and implemented it. They took something and went and tried. They took something and had the right thinking. And guess what? I keep saying this. We live in a world where you're either a win or a loss. And that's the conversation and the context through which we look at. But I want to encourage you that if you go and try, you're guaranteed to produce a result. The result you want, or it's a result that will make you grow. But get a result. Go out and do something. Learn this and take advantage of this coaching you've got. Take advantage of this community. Take advantage of the coaching you're getting. Take advantage of this tribe here. Because here's what I know. When you become singularly selfish in application, you up-level this community. Because now you have 100 people striving. And suddenly, guess what? You have 100 people who can share ideas, who can commune, who can partner, who can grow, who can uplift each other. You have 100 people who can invest in each other. But if all you do is learn and learn and learn and learn and learn, you're gonna be learned and broke.